Hello, thanks for joining us here on the Bill Mason Show. Hey, Bill.
Hey, here we go. Another Tuesday in the United States where it's getting hard to narrow something down to actually talk about. There's just so much going on.
There is. I mean, we're between a 30 and an hour show. This
Yeah,
is probably going to be around 30, 40 minutes. So,
yeah,
but there's just so much to talk about. There's Bill Barr and testifying with craziness. We
there
have,
is.
just everything. Don Jr.
Yeah, the crackdown of these social media platforms where, you don't even have to take a stance on something. Like you could just retweet the wrong thing and all of a sudden you're banned, or, post a video
Mhm.
and it literally, affects your account, and it's a weird place to be where we're supposed to be free to express our views and all of these other things. And anybody else who's having issues with Twitter, we're on Parler too. So go, or Parlay as it said. Try Parlay if you find yourself getting censored instantly, constantly, all the time, because Twitter has now become just like any other big major social media where they're on board with all this cancel culture, immediately squash any form of like dissent. You know what I mean? It's a tough place to be, but I think in the end we're gonna have to figure something out where we can speak our minds at least.
I agree. I agree. So we have all this to talk about. So later on in the show, we have video from Don Jr. about
Yeah.
him being violated on Twitter, as far as being a little bit was restricted or warning or whatever it was. We're going to
Yeah.
go over that. We're going to go over a Trump supporter that was gunned down. It was a black Trump supporter that was gunned down. We have a tribute to him. Of course, I don't like to talk about black, white, Asian. We're all Americans, so I don't know
Right.
why we have to label everybody, but so everybody wants to be labeled. So, anyways, we have that. And then we also have right now, we're going to talk about the Yugoslavia video that we have. Go into that more detail, what we're going to say here.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's going to happen in this video? What is she talking about?
Oh, well, she was talking about in the 90s when she saw it before they had like their civil, I guess you would call it a civil war, where
It was.
they would demonize one side, okay, like politically demonize. And even in their media back then, their media was different. It wasn't internet based, but it was very television based, and they only had a few channels to choose from. And it would be, this side's evil, therefore if they die, they die, and life will be better without them. And it was really a bad place to be, as they sold it to them like the erosion of their freedom was for their own good.
Right.
And we're in a very similar place where these people today are like kind of embracing communism like it's for our own good. And we're getting rid of like the best country in the world that everybody models after. And even if it is, systemically racist, people are dying to come here and face the systemic racism just for the chance to live in America. So, I mean, this is the thing that like the people don't understand that we have today, is that these things end badly. I mean, they've ended badly throughout history, and they're erasing history, of course, because you don't want to face history, because then it's like, ooh, that's a bad taste in my mouth.
Right.
I don't want to go there. I just want to, level everything. But this girl living through something like that in Yugoslavia is trying to give maybe young people like a heads up, like this is how this ends.
Yeah, I know people have came over from the old Yugoslavia breakup that became United States citizens.
Yep.
So they're very nice people. Did you ever seen the movie Behind Enemy Lines?
Yes, I have.
Just like that's about Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at this video.
Okay.
This is my message for the greatest country in the world. In the light of the recent events in the United States, I felt morally obliged to shed light on a very similar chain of events that took place in my country during the 90s. The cause of those events was the same: a constantly re-emerging ultimate evil, nihilistic, non-theistic religion/cult that caused hundreds of millions of deaths in the 20th century and countless suffering. Now, proponents of that religion want to run the experiment once again, and in that experiment, you, people of America, will be lab mice. Not so long ago, I was a lab mouse of dictators in my country. That country was Yugoslavia. Rather than giving you lessons about history of my country, I want to give you the timeline of the events which led to an extremely bloody war and dissolution of Yugoslavian Federacy. I will leave it to you to make conclusions about similarities with recent events in the United States. In the 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall marked the victory of the free world over tyrannical monstrosity of communism across the Europe. However, Yugoslav communists didn't feel like letting go of their precious powers. Since the climate in Europe was extremely anti-communist at the time, they knew they needed a new strategy, an ideology that would seduce the masses and keep the power in their hands. So they come up with a very clever idea, to rebrand the communism in Yugoslavia and to change its name into socialism. Not any type of socialism, but a very special type, the National Socialism. Sounds familiar? The playbook they used to progress with their agenda was already tested in Nazi Germany. To establish National Socialism, you must first install hatred in people. In order to create genocidal levels of hatred, you must divide people of one country in well-defined groups. In other words, you must create tribal or groupthink. This can be achieved in different ways. You can divide people by ethnicity, by race, by religion. You can let your imagination go wild. Since Yugoslavs were white and practically indistinguishable among themselves, the only card they could play was the religion card. Yugoslavia was very mixed religion-wise, and we had Orthodox Christian Serbs, Catholic Croats and Slovenes, and Muslim Bosnians. A perfect starting position. In the next phase, you must start making such social policies so terrible that will inevitably lead to the countless individual disadvantages. When the consequences of such government policies become obvious, you must start claiming that the cause of those inequalities is nothing but discrimination and hatred of one group towards another, and naturally, you must start screaming that those inequalities must be corrected by favoring the oppressed, discriminated group over the oppressor group. Enter national quotas for hiring. Now just replace national with race or women. Once the groups are formed and well defined, it's needless to say that all the mainstream media in Yugoslavia were government controlled and were fueling the narrative about mutual discrimination and hatred relentlessly. The growing fear and feeling of insecurity destroyed relationships, marriages, friendships. As fear of discrimination and hostility among groups were growing, people started retreating and isolating within their own groups because they didn't feel safe anymore with the individuals of the other group. All of a sudden, staged and very well organized mass protests started all over the country. Protests against the oppression and killing of one group by another. At first, those protests were peaceful, but soon enough, rioting and burning started. Now that you have the attention of the public, you need sparks. What is a spark? A spark is a convenient event of murdering of a random member of one group by a hateful member of another. And you usually need more than one of those. At this point, people were still not completely divided. There were still reasonable people left, those who understood we are all one nation under God, and that we will not kill each other under any circumstances. They went out protesting together, singing for peace and holding their hands. But the hunger for the absolute power of socialists was stronger than our love for each other. And shootings and attacks at protesters continued. In the next phase, the tipping point with no return was reached. People started erecting barricades at the entrance of their cities, their neighborhoods, even on highways and roads. Barricades were guarded with armed civilians. Each and every attempt of the law enforcement to remove barricades and to de-escalate the situation was in vain, since they would be ambushed and killed. Peace couldn't be restored anymore, because headlines, photos and videos of dead people propagated through mass media became too explicit and horrifying. Even those hardcore idealists who believed in one nation under God, peace and love, snapped under the pressure. At that point, army was deployed to restore order, but they couldn't do much, because they were clueless about who was the perpetrator and who was the victim. Simply because there were perpetrators and victims on both sides. In the final stages, even the army was attacked during the negotiated retreat and 50 or 100 soldiers were killed. And just like that, Yugoslavia found itself in a civil war. City against city, village against village, family against family, and so on until the whole territories became claimed of the members of the enemy group. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, relocation of hundreds of thousands of people were everyday news. It lasted 4 years. 100,000 people died. Some 500,000 were displaced. Those people lost everything. Yugoslavia was drowned in the bloods of thousands of innocent people and destroyed forever. You might wonder how we let that happen. How could we let things get so much out of control? That was because we didn't realize who were the real enemies, the enemies of the Yugoslav people as a whole. Instead, we were brainwashed into buying the story that we, the people, are the enemies of each other, while our true enemies were advancing with their sick, demented agenda, which had as the ultimate goal the total and unlimited power. This brings me to present times, the year 2020, and to you, American people. Unless you were living under the rock, you might have noticed that something very strange and vicious is happening in your country. But you're not exactly sure what it is and where it came from. Because the last time you checked, you were one nation under God, a country of free, independent individuals with equal rights under the law and core values of life, liberty and pursuit of happiness. All of a sudden, there is protesting, rioting, arson, murder, destruction of public and private property, and lots of people screaming how unbelievably racist and unjust America is. And before you even manage to prepare your morning coffee and turn the TV on, once united Americans are at each other's throat, and a bunch of nice and caring people on TV are telling you how you should accept the violence and hatred against Americans because you deserve it. If you have paid attention to what happened in Yugoslavia, I hope you have realized by now that your true enemies are not your fellow Americans. The ones who are, they want you to hate each other and to kill each other, while they're taking away your constitutional rights, your freedoms and your country, your heritage, your way of life and the future of your children. Although it is more than obvious that there are very well organized groups used as tools to install and amplify hate and to create division between Americans, there are only metastases which have spread through once healthy America. Of course, they are violent terrorist organizations and they must be removed as well. But the main cancer that is killing America, the one where all this mayhem is coming from, is somewhere else. The real and extremely dangerous enemies of American people are the elected officials in your government, in your states, in your courts. Representatives, governors, mayors, judges. The ones who are pulling the ropes. The ones who hate America and American people so much that would even sacrifice the life and prosperity of their own children just to see it burn to the ground and American blood spilled. Those are really sick, demented, ideologically possessed people, and they are in high positions in the government. They are governing your states, your cities, and making decisions in your courts. You know very well who they are. You know very well what they already did to once beautiful and prosperous American states and cities. They are resentful, power and bloodthirsty. They want you and your children suffering in misery and begging them for mercy. They won't stop, no matter how much you try to appease them. Unless you, American people, stop them. You're maybe thinking this is...
All right, so it goes on, but just so you be aware that what she's talking about is the Democrats. They are socialist. They want to destroy the country, and they're growing hatred to us and everybody around them.
Yeah, because they have to change they are becoming the new Democrats. So it was easy for the old Democrats, okay, to establish their power under the guise of, oh man, you know, you're black, you have to vote for us because those dirty Republicans, all they want to do is make money and we're the ones that are going to help you. Well, black people woke up and now they're like, wait a minute, we voted for you for 60 years. We haven't moved an inch.
I haven't done anything.
it's all BS. You haven't done anything. So like they lost that vote essentially. Like if you pay attention to Brexit, that is just this huge movement of black people that are refusing to vote Democrat. They're like, I'm done with you, because they realize that the other side of the coin is where, okay, everybody's free on your own steam. If you are an entrepreneur, the sky's the limit for you under Republicans, okay? And you can have this economic freedom that puts you on a level where now you're moving. You're not in the same place. You're not stuck in that neighborhood that's Democrat run. And the reason Democrats run these crappy neighborhoods is because if you don't feel threatened, you don't need them. All right, so enter 2020, where all of these people are being upwardly mobilized by this new belief in Donald Trump, and that scares the crap out of them. So how do they switch gears? They go, socialism, and then they unanimously endorse this new thing, which is not new, but to them it is, and they don't even know what they're doing. Like, they don't realize that the left is going to eat itself. They're going to eat their own, because when they're done, especially these Black Lives Matter types, these Marxists, when they're done being supported by Democrats, it's the removal of them. Like there's this old saying, like, you feed the crocodile so it eats you last. Okay? So like, honestly, like, they don't realize that supporting these Marxists is going to end badly for them, because in their big agenda, it's the removal of the Democrats. Yeah. Like they're not going to be there if they had their way. Right. So this is a weird place for them to be. They have to support something, and it has to be other than what Trump's doing. Right. Because
well, they have to support defund the police, because unlike Yugoslavia, they didn't have local law enforcement. They had
right.
So they have to get rid of the elected leaders of the law enforcement for them to do their agenda. They won't work without it. I mean, that's the reason why, I mean, the Constitution and the elected leaders of the local government is so critical.
Yes, and what happens when it breaks down, I think we're also watching that. We're watching these cities that are broken, and the people that could save them, the mayors and the police commissioners and stuff like that, are looking the other way at the non-peaceful people, okay? The people that are lighting fires and exploding things and hurting other people. They're looking the other way under lumping them in with peaceful protest. And to me, I've watched hours of video. I can watch a peaceful protest and go, that's how it's done. They're not blocking the highway. They're sitting there. They're in a public place. They're doing their thing. They're showing they're upset about an issue, and they're not gonna move until whatever happens. But then nightfall happens, and in comes Antifa with, I mean, the federal law enforcement officers are finding Molotov cocktails, whole cases of them, paint, ball bearings, slingshots, bats, like spike bats, pieces of wood with screws and nails in them. This is not peaceful protest when you bring that stuff. No. Okay? Like if you go back to the 60s, okay, they had megaphones, they beat drums, they wanted to be heard. That was the extent. So if you were part of the protest, you had to listen to drums and whistles and all that stuff. But they never went down the road of spike bats and you know, now they're using commercial fireworks like weapons. They're firing these mortars at police. I mean, this is so far over the line where your mayor, your elected official should go, okay, guys, you crossed the line. I have to end this. You're not peaceful anymore. No. But instead, you have mayors that are like, oh, I understand. You guys don't eat me, you know. Right.
Oh boy. So yeah, I mean, they're destroying the whole cities. It's total mayhem. All right. Well, we're gonna go on a commercial break here. We have from Expedia. We have a commercial about Portland. Take a look.
All right.
Portland, Oregon is located in the northwestern United States, where the Willamette and Columbia rivers meet. Downtown Portland was built with pedestrians in mind, so you can easily walk the Central District to take in the city's architecture, parks, and fountains at your own pace. The heart of the city is the amphitheater on Pioneer Courthouse Square. It's the place everyone keeps coming back to after browsing galleries, shopping, and sightseeing. Do bring an umbrella because showers are very common, although there's plenty of sunshine to enjoy in the summer. This is also a great spot for people watching on a lazy afternoon. In the middle of all this natural beauty sits Portland. More than just a place to stop and smell the roses, this is a place to truly experience the laid-back atmosphere and splendor of the Great Northwest.
Beautiful Portland.
Yeah, plan your trip to Portland now.
Yes. Don't miss it.
It's peak season. Bring your camera. I mean, you'll never forget this trip.
Right. A lot of things to do. Oh boy! Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some sad news, by the way. We have a Milwaukee Trump supporter that was gunned down. By the way, tell us a little about it, Bill. What happened there?
Apparently, this guy was, living in a neighborhood in Milwaukee where it's very unfavorable to support Trump. This guy handmade signs all over the place. He was not only an avid Trump supporter, he would be out on the streets trying to tell people that, Trump is trying to help us. Please don't hate on him. Let me explain this to you. He was very informative. He would talk to anyone that would talk to him. But it got to be in this culture where there are people out there that you're not allowed to have that view because you're black. That is not an acceptable thing. So therefore, you can't just let bygones be bygones. You have to kill this guy. And this guy gave his life for believing in the opposite political party, which is a country that we should not be living in. This should be okay. Just like I tolerate liberals and Democrats and they tell me their views, and sometimes I feel like I'm in the cuckoo's nest, but I let them say, hey, that's your view. Okay. More power to you. There's nothing I can do, but it's very sad that the black community has gone this route where black guys wearing MAGA hats get, jumped and beat up and all this stuff. And this guy gets murdered by apparently a BLM. So somebody identified the shooter, and apparently he's a BLM member. So we'll see more as that information comes out. But then this just screams more like, do all Black lives matter? Or only black lives that are the select few? So it's like a really... Yeah, it's so hypocritical in its nature, and that's why they get upset when you say, "Well, don't all lives matter?" And then they get upset and they're like, "Oh, you're just trying to take steam away from us. We're trying to, make black people the focus." But then you see a black person shoot another black person just for liking Donald Trump, and you go, "Didn't his life matter?" Exactly. Apparently not. There's a point where your life doesn't matter, and it's when you don't toe the Democrat, socialist, weirdo, whatever vibe. When you don't do that, you're expendable, I guess.
Yeah. So we did a little tribute. Of course, we didn't pick the music out. Somebody else did the video, but it's a little tribute to him. So take a look.
All right.
May the Lord bless and keep you.
Donald Trump for this year, Trump 2020. I believe Trump is the sign of the
Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
and give you peace.
There you go. So he was gunned down supporting Donald Trump. So, I mean, he has he's very intelligent because it is a sign of times as far as what's going on around the world.
Yeah, and it's something that from what I read, I didn't really know. The sad part is I didn't know anything about this guy until he passed. So when you start looking him up on the various Twitter feeds and stuff, apparently he was the guy who on the weekends made sandwiches out of his own fridge and looked for homeless people that were hungry. I mean, this was just a guy that we shouldn't lose.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So like this guy being on Earth was better for everyone, but yet his views get him killed. That's the sad part. That's the America we live in right now. You know, that's not the place I want to continue living in. I want to fix this, but I mean, this is something that the left loves it, because they'll spin this as, oh, that's just gun violence. If that guy didn't have a gun, that would have never happened. And then you go, here we go again. Like, you know, so they're experts. The left is experts at rebranding violent acts, murders and stuff like that, depending on who commits them. You know, who's going to be the fall guy for it? Is it the Second Amendment? Is it gun rights? Is it, you know, who is it now that we're going to demonize? And this guy dies, and the person who should be demonized, they can't be demonized right now because they're protesting. Right. And they want something. And we're spray painting Black Lives Matter on streets right now. And mayors are genuflecting before these Marxist lunatics. And you can't bring up the fact that maybe they're not all together. Because that's wrong. You can't talk about that.
Oh, that's very wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I mean, he seemed like a great guy. So, condolences to his family. Let's go on to the next subject. Don Jr. got a violation from Twitter for posting just retweeting a video about doctors saying hydrochloroquine is good.
Right. Doctors who actually have prescribed it and used it in various situations and commenting with each other about what's the best way to use it. Like, there's a lot of controversy. Does it get used alone, or does it get used with a Z-Pack of some sort, you know? So these doctors are sitting around talking about it. Donald Trump reposts it and says, hey, look, everyone's talking about how this doesn't work. Check this out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and boom, he gets a violation, gets suspended.
Yeah, so I have the violation up right now. So
right.
Let's take a look here. So it says that he violated their policy of misleading, harmful information.
Yeah. My point is that who deems it harmful when doctors are talking? Okay, how has that become harmful? Is it because they're the doctors that aren't saying what people want them to say right now? I mean, we've had 2 videos removed because we posted doctors' testimony about ventilators, and I'm sorry to our followers that you can't see these videos, but these were actual doctors in New York treating people with coronavirus, telling you straight up, we're doing something wrong and this is not how we do it. And because we put that out there, they immediately removed the video. Just like we tried to post a video of these doctors and it just immediately gets scrubbed. Right. It's almost like the memory hole from 1984. It's like, nope, that goes in the fire. No one talks about that.
Yeah, we tried to play the video tonight. We played the video before we actually did the show.
Yeah, you can't.
It was scrubbed. It's taken off.
You can't play it on Twitter. You can't play it on YouTube. No. You can't play it even on Facebook. I mean, you might be able to pull it off on Parler or Parlay, but honestly, it's going to be scrubbed because they're going to the website itself. So I tried to post on the Bill Mason Twitter the website itself where you can find the video to watch if you want to watch. And yes, there is some banter back and forth. It's not all like primetime information, but just the fact that these doctors are saying, hey, I had this guy, nothing was working, he was having trouble breathing, every breath he was struggling to take, boom, 3 rounds or 3 days of hydroxychloroquine, the guy's breathing again. So, I mean, if that's not a testament to, hey, let's keep it on the table, I don't know what is. But the fact that they're so adamant about removing this is kind of like, it makes me want to dig more into it. You know, it makes me want to learn more, and then you start digging.
Well, it's weird. I mean, there are either doctors that's in the field that have been treating patients, and they don't want them to talk.
Right, and they don't want them to talk. Now, the main thing that I found when you start rabbit holing this whole hydroxychloroquine thing, is that yes, there are people that shouldn't use it. Okay, there are aspects of hydroxychloroquine that could be dangerous. But if you're under a physician's care, he's going to say, you know what, you're already taking nitroglycerin, you have heart problems, not a good idea for you, okay? And that's what doctors are for. Now, if you are one of these people that this can be used, the fact that they're banning it some places is mind-boggling. It's got to be worth a shot, because we've seen the coronavirus from the interim. If anybody who's new to the Bill Mason show, we were back in January talking about this stuff.
We were the first.
Sounding the alarm, like China is blowing this and it's going to come over here. Like we were trying to tell you. But here's the thing. As we learn more about coronavirus, I think people are really hell-bent on keeping it going. It seems like there's a movement to keep it going rather than to like literally look for things that help. So we know that vaccines take a long time, and granted, they're doing amazing things. I think clinical trials on people started today. People volunteered, 30,000 people volunteered. They're going to give like 15,000 people a placebo and 15,000 the actual vaccine, and go from there. But here's the thing. Like, we've had this from the interim. How many people could have got treated with this that didn't because of the resistance to it? Right. It's very strange that there would be someone in the medical field who would say, no, that's off the table. Absolutely not. Right. It's like, why not try it? I mean, these people were dying in record numbers in New York City, and they let the mayor of New York force COVID positive people in the nursing homes, but yet hydroxychloroquine was illegal in New York.
It only costs $10 for a 30-day supply.
And boom, you just hit it right on the head, right? So when I started rabbit holing this whole subject, this has been out on the market. There's generics everywhere, and we don't have to get this from China. This is made mostly in India, who we seem to have a great relationship with right now. Actually, the Prime Minister of India gets along with Donald Trump like peas and carrots. So these guys are cool. So India is not going to cut us off like China would. Now, here's the thing. The whole remdesivir, well, I don't know if anyone's been following that. Bill Gates is involved in that. George Soros is involved in that. China. Of course. Yeah, it's an expensive, super expensive drug that is you can't get a generic version. So of course that's the answer. It's not the $5 one that you can pull at any pharmacy. No. It's the $330 one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we have Don Jr. talking about what happened. His phone was a little glitchy, but we do have the video. Let's take a look.
Yeah. It's
as I said. The CDC has changed their guidelines. Sorry about that. The little Siri deal kicked in, and I'm not sure if you saw the rest of that, but it's sort of interesting that they would do that. They would censor me for literally just saying, here are a bunch of doctors that are saying something. I didn't take a stance as to their legitimacy, their efficacy relative to...
All right, there we go. So he just retweeted a video. That's it.
Right. And they shut his account down for 24 hours, and then when they did finally up him, it was restricted to what he could post. So if he were to post any video, it would be under like scrutiny for like a certain period before they would actually hit. And now let's not forget that when Twitter got hacked, I think it was about a week ago or two, Don Jr.'s account was one of the ones that got hacked, and they shut it down, and they quote unquote figured it out in 2 days, but Don Jr. couldn't get back into his account for a week. So I mean, something is going on here with social media. It's almost like there's this changing of the guard, and you're watching these people become so restrictive to things that are just information. It's not hate speech. You're not calling for anybody's instant death, and you're not promoting anything that's going to literally get people killed. This is just hey, check this video out. I mean, people watch cat videos for hours, okay? It gets you nowhere. You're no better off for watching the cat video, but this is something that may have been educational to some people, yet it's treated like hate speech.
Oh, it is. It is. So here's Donald Trump on what happened. Take a look.
Right.
That you said was a great doctor. In that video that you retweeted last night said that masks don't work and there is a cure for COVID-19, both of which health experts say is not true. She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious.
Well, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but I can tell you this. She was on air along with many other doctors. They were big fans of hydroxychloroquine. And I thought she was very impressive in the sense that from where she came, I don't know which country she comes from, but she said that she's had tremendous success with hundreds of different patients. And I thought her voice was an important voice, but I know nothing about her.
Go ahead, Paul.
That's it. So anyway, I mean, they are just trying to hammer the hydrochloroquine. They don't want nobody to take it for some reason.
No. And you know what's funny? One of the things that they brought up, there was a doctor, a female doctor. We did a show actually where we included, it was called Fun Vax. When they're talking about the vaccine that makes people non-religious, she was talking about Fun Vax, who everybody said, oh, that was a hoax, that was nothing or whatever. But if you check out the Bill Mason show, we put it on there. We have the at-length video of these guys, these DOD personnel, talking about how this thing was designed to stop Islamic fundamentalists. Okay, and it was a very weird thing that you had governments actually working on this form of mind control through a vaccine. So the fact that this doctor brought it up set off bells and whistles in the media immediately, and they were like, "Oh, they're quacks. They're not real doctors. They're talking about fun vax." But guess what? This is what doctors deal with. Doctors deal with so many levels. Like, if you honestly think that there are doctors out there that 100% trust the FBA or the FDA, you're crazy, because there are doctors out there that say, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this, but they're squashed, as we've seen. We've tried to post their videos. You can't hear from a doctor that doesn't toe the line from one of these people. So it's not going to be for the betterment of the medical industry. It's obviously for profit or to keep this COVID going. I mean, honestly, if people could take a pack of these $5 hydroxychloroquines at the first sign of fever and never actually get COVID symptoms, we would be in a whole different playing field.
Oh yeah, definitely.
This would change everything.
Well, that's the reason why people should go see an independent doctor that's outside of a hospital network.
Absolutely.
Because they have to go by their guidelines. They won't prescribe hydrochloroquine unless you have symptoms. And even then, you might not even get it. So
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and he had a caller who said, my doctor prescribed it to me, and when I went to pick it up at the pharmacy, they had it in stock. Everything was good. They wouldn't release it until they physically talked to my doctor. So then they wouldn't call the doctor. He had to call the doctor and say, hey, I'm trying to get the prescription that you gave me. They won't give it to me. And then he had to call them. It was like they were holding it hostage. Right. And they asked the doctor, why did you prescribe it? And he just stood up and said, I'm a medical professional. You're a pharmacist. I wrote it down. You fill it. End of story. And they finally did. But the fact that this guy couldn't get his prescription because somebody at somewhere at Walgreens, CVS, they didn't say who it was, but somewhere they said, hey, red flag that. That's not supposed to go out. Why? Yeah. Why?
Oh boy. We're in trouble, I think. I mean, and if Biden gets in, we're going to be in super trouble.
Oh my God. It's almost to the point where I can't imagine the level of disruption that Biden could achieve in his first 100 days. Like literally just with these people ready to go. And that's why, real quick, not to go off topic, everybody in every state, everywhere, you need to really make sure that you got to keep the Senate, and we got to try to make the House, because they're just as important. You see what the runaway House has done. What they're doing to Bill Barr today was mind-boggling. I'm sure some of our people, if you're watching this show, you probably watched that. They really don't know how to run the House Judiciary. They've turned it into just a circus, and it's terrible, and it doesn't do anybody any good. But anyway, we need to win local elections too. It's not just about Donald Trump. And honestly, they found a way to put a chink in Donald Trump's armor by taking the House back. We saw the disruption. We saw the impeachments, the Ukraine BS. I mean, that was complete horse crap, and they did it because they had the majority in the House. Right. So if, and I don't want it to happen, if Biden, okay, were to somehow get in, I need to have some kind of third way to slow him down at least. We need to keep the Senate, man, because he cannot appoint judges.
Well, not only that, if Trump wins the presidency and we lose the Senate and they keep the House, he's gone anyway for impeachment again.
Exactly. So it's all important. A lot of people focus just on Donald Trump, the man. It's not just Donald Trump, the man. It's a movement. Okay, Drain the Swamp needs more than Donald Trump. It needs your local officials to participate. As we saw when Donald Trump first got elected and started to really just bull in a china shop, we saw these Republicans who were too scared to get on board, and all of his early on things failed because they wouldn't back him. Okay, and now they're coming around slowly but surely, but we've seen the swamp rats, okay? I mean, if you email the Bill Mason Show, just email us, BillMasonShow@gmail.com, okay? We'll tell you who's in your state and who you should look out for. I mean, I'm up on that. I can't go state by state. It would take me forever. But seriously, if you're unsure about who is on what side of the fence, email us at the Bill Mason Show. It's BillMasonShow@gmail.com, and we'll show you.
We will. So that's the show tonight, Bill. I know you've been talking just a few minutes ago, but do you have any last words?
Last words, I guess, would be that it's really important that we pay attention how they handle Bill Barr. Because if they can do this kind of muckraking thing to a guy like Bill Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, they could do it to anyone. We've seen them attack Trump with no evidence. They're attacking Bill Barr with no evidence. And it trickles down. When these people get power, they can take anyone. And the McCloskeys, too. The McCloskeys, the people from St. Louis, the couple. They're kind of famous. If you haven't heard of them, just Google McCloskeys. You'll see the Polo Commando. We did if you want to go to the Bill Mason Show, go to, the Polo Commando. And they're charging them. Okay? So they're charging them with felonies for brandishing weapons on their property. 2 people versus 300. Okay, and they're trying to say that this is a felony situation. If they can do it to those people, now the McCloskeys are economically in an okay position. They probably will mount a significant defense. But if it was me and I had to pony up 40 grand for a retainer, it would break me. Okay, just defending myself versus something like this. So this is the test of whether these people can weather this storm. Because if it trickles down to me, a level of me, a working class guy, I'm done. And I'm done at the minute that they push a button. And it's because I can't fight it out in court. So these courts are super important. Your local judges, all the people that you think are like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, the sheriff? I don't even know who's running for sheriff. Not that important. It's super important. That's it. All I got.
Important. So thanks for watching tonight. Please subscribe. And thanks for watching. You have a wonderful night.
Good night, everyone.
After the election, we put Biden on here instead of Hillary.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You see Biden's flub today? It was he went out and he said, "We're in the midst of a climate crisis."
Yeah, and he also said he was at somewhere else, but he said he was joking. You see that?
He's so clueless, man. And it's like they prepped him, apparently, from what I heard on the radio. They prepped him for 15 minutes before he went out to talk for 5, and he still flubbed it up and blew it. Can you imagine this guy going overseas, like negotiating treaties? I can't. No way, man.